So this is the 08:10 hours GMT, 09:10 hours British Standard Time on Friday, 22nd of September 2023, and we are broadcasting part B of the KHOODEELAARTV television channel under the banner of Baby Angel Geronimo. Baby Angel Geronimo is the Angel Geronimo, born in New Zealand 10 years ago and lovingly raised by a woman called Leonie Walker. Leonie Walker is a reputed breeder of alpacas. And then Baby Angel Geronimo was invited to travel to England, where he joined a woman, very experienced person called Helen MacDonald. So all the things that we say in the commentary and everything surrounding the commentary and topical updates, these are based on the central ethical, moral observation of the moral facts and evidence that are to be found in the years of harassment, demonization, criminality, and cruelty aimed at Baby Angel Geronimo and aimed at Helen MacDonald by the criminals called the DEFRA and their associates and various evilnesses personified in the DEFRA, such as the so-called Chief Vedh, a woman called Christine Middlemiss, the evilness, Christine Evilness Middlemiss. And until recently, the cabinet member fronting the DEFRA criminality, George Injustice Eustace, and various cheerleaders in the Fleet Street media. Contrary to the image and the impression they gave of being almost sympathetic to Baby Angel Geronimo 2 years ago, the Fleet Street outlets, not one, told the truth. They kept going on and kept repeating the absolute criminal lie that Baby Angel Geronimo had tested positive, which he never had done. It is impossible biologically, physically, scientifically, rationally, evidentially for someone in his or in their health, the Baby Angel Geronimo has been, to test positive to a test supposedly conducted to elicit the result as to whether they are infected with and carrying what is called bovine tuberculosis. Baby Angel Geronimo never did carry, never could carry, never can carry any such infection. So the fact that they actually distorted the test and the evidence and the truth applies, applies to every single decision made by every single part and organ and agency of the United Kingdom that affects the morality or otherwise, affects the truth and otherwise of the people and elements and creatures being affected by those decisions. So therefore, the banner Baby Angel Geronimo Editions cover not only the immediate issues about Baby Angel Geronimo's own experience, but they cover the experiences of others For example, in today's Daily Mail, London Daily Mail, there is an announcement on page 1 of an article apparently carried on pages 7 to 9, and it says, as Murdoch's elder son wins succession battle, Andrew Neil's warning. Now, as we say, Andrew Neil is an evilness personified. Dirty Digger, Rupert Murdoch, is an evilness multiple times personified, and there is no content, there is no truth in the Daily Mail's absolutely false, untruthful use of the word warning. Andrew Neil cannot warn. Andrew Neil's whole entire career, entire life has been contaminated by sucking up to liars and lying and peddling lies. So, whatever he might be saying, which we haven't yet read, would be another pack of lies to suit the day, the demands of the day, the running orders. And he will be able to deliver another similarly fresh-looking warning in the days or weeks or months to come. Andrew Neil is the one, remember, that played a significant leading part in creating the idea that anyone who tells the truth in the United Kingdom is to be condemned as being a woke. Anyone who opposes racism is woke. Anyone who calls for accountability is woke. Anyone who calls for an end to lying, racism, end to corruption and criminality and abuse of the resources of the state is woke. So, one evilness apparently carried in the evilness called the Daily Mail, apparently giving warning about the succession of Dirty Digger, Rupert Murdoch, by his son Lachlan Murdoch, is complete rubbish. There is no truth in anything in these newspapers today, as there never have been. Now, the former Australian Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, who himself has a record of lying because he appeared on the public platform as the advocate challenging the British Secret Service and the alleged dramatic disclosures about the Secret Service by an ex British spy. And he was confronting the UK government at the time when he was a practicing licensed law trader in Australia. The British government's demand that the book should not be published. And so, therefore, the image of Malcolm Turnbull in the 1980s was an image cultivated carefully of one who wanted disclosure, transparency, and all the rest of it. On the back of that, he eventually gained enough political clout and popularity in order for him to be installed as prime minister for a period in Australia. But when he was in office, there was really no connection between what he had been appearing to preach as a licensed law trader. Spy Catcher was the name of the book, and what he was doing in post. So Malcolm Turnbull is himself not credible. And there is nothing else, no other source. No other source that is printed and published in the papers today about the reported decision by the Dirty Digger to hand over the reign of the main operations in the USA, Fox News, and its associated outlets. We say that Rupert Murdoch, Dirty Digger, is the shaitan, is the evilness of the last 100 years. And the evilness has contaminated the whole world and has undermined democracy and undermined freedom and undermined opposition to racism. So when we say that Andrew Neil was the one that actually we actually mean that he got the encouragement from the platforms via Dirty Dick and Murdoch. Because although the BBC is supposedly independent of Murdoch and funded by the license fee payers' money, the BBC's agenda, the political agenda of the BBC, has been increasingly influenced by the evilness called Dirty Digger Murdoch. And there is nothing in the British political system, so called, that actually can deter him, can actually stop him, let alone to hold him to account. One news of the world newspaper was caught having invaded the privacy of this child who was murdered and most certainly sexually abused, Millie Dowler. Murdoch didn't account for the violations by the News of the World and his media outlets. He just shut down the News of the World in 2011. And so, therefore, there is nothing that has happened since he took over the reins of the British newspapers, especially symbolized by the Daily Scum, that shows that he has ever been held to account. And he has not even been held to account about the real liabilities, tax liabilities, that he has evaded regularly. There is a culture of corruption and collusion that is actually operated by the head or the frontier of the UK regime. For example, the regime that was fronted by Dave Cameron was so embarrassingly close to Rebecca Brooks. She is the mole. She is Dirty Digger, Rupert Murdoch's Dirty Mole. She had the contracts with Dave Cameron. And before Dave Cameron, she was the contract with Tony Blair. So it's all dirty. It's absolute dirty. There is no enlightenment, there is no morality, there is no ethics. All the world's wars, the whole idea of the migrants seeking asylum and shelter in a country like the United Kingdom, these are caused directly by the criminality, the corruption, the lying, the suppression operated by the world's media. And as the American R slicker Michael Wolff, so called writer of biographies, called the first volume on Murdoch, The Man Who Owns the News. Dirty Digger Murdoch actually owns the news. That is to say, he controls the majority of the logistics of the operations of the news business and the news agenda right across the world. The fact that the people in Asia outnumber the rest of the population of the world doesn't mean that the people in Asia actually control the agenda of the news, news distribution, the news contents of the rest of the world, or even in Asia or Africa. So that is the introduction. So let's see what peddling about Rupert Murdoch. And let's see first for the Daily Mail, the liars are publishing on pages 7 to 9 under the name of the liar Andrew Neil. Now, apparently, Murdoch is calling for free speech. Fuck him. He is the murderer of free speech. Right from the word go, there is no freedom of speech if the freedom to tell the truth is involved. So, what Andrew Neil is saying that this has been a coup, that Murdoch has not actually voluntarily left the chief top post, that he has been actually forced to do so. Elderson 52 is handed crown as Rupert 92 stuns his 18 billion empire by stepping aside. Now, I don't believe that he has stepped aside. I think he has been forced to step aside. That's the whole point, and this will be obvious in time, not too long before it becomes clear as to how the details were operated about removing Murdoch. Murdoch always told Andrew Neil, they will have to carry me out in a box. Now, our columnist poses a billion-dollar question. Can the global empire Rupert built up over 70 years survive without its buccaneering establishment baiting founder at the helm? Well, obviously, he's not telling the truth there. So let's see what the highlights are in the Andrew Neil piece, which has been the most significantly promoted one on this topic. Rupert Murdoch had a stock response to anybody indelicate enough to inquire if he might one day consider retiring. They'll have to carry me out of the office in a box, he would grunt, which was guaranteed to end any further discussion along these lines. It certainly did on the occasion when I heard him deploy it. Yet here we are, the greatest media mogul of modern times has announced he is stepping back as boss of the newspaper and television empire he spent a lifetime building on 3 continents and handing over control to his son Lachlan, and not a box in sight. True, at 92, he's had an innings longer than most, and lesser men would have jacked it in long ago. But nobody saw this coming, and it took the media world, which likes to think it's on top of such things, entirely by surprise. That will have tickled Murdoch. So, this is something that Andrew Neil is doing typically. He is speculating, he is not basing it on any evidence. He is speculating and building his own kind of columns, future columns for the Daily Mail group, so that he can write more on developments on this story. Note that I wrote stepping back rather than stepping down, much less resigning. Lachlan becomes the undisputed chairman of Murdoch's two remaining companies, Fox Television and News Corporation newspapers. But Rupert is describing his move as merely a transition. He still plans to participate in the years ahead, is full of thoughts, ideas, and advice for his companies, and will still be in the office late on a Friday afternoon. This is not exactly retirement as mere mortals know it. He's even given himself a fancy title, Chairman Emeritus. When Frank Giles, who served briefly in 1982 to 83 as editor of the Sunday Times, between the legendary Harry Evans and myself, was shunted out to make way for me, Rupert gave him the honorary title Editor Emeritus. When asked what that meant, Giles self deprecatingly explained E means out in Latin, Meritus means deserves to be. I don't think Rupert will quite see his title in that way. I suspect he will find it impossible to relinquish the reins of power entirely. Whatever guarantees he is given Lachlan, I doubt Rupert will be able to forego giving his tuppence worth. He will still regard it as his company, which in so many ways it is. Indeed, with no executive responsibilities, he will have more time to dabble in content and let his views be known. I'm sure his many editors and broadcasters can't wait for the late Friday afternoon calls to come and see him. In many ways, however, it is a good time to pass the baton, etc., etc. Now, I'm not going to read the rest of it on this live broadcast. What I'm going to do is to comment on Andrew Neil himself more. Andrew Neil is the worst possible person to claim that he is against suppression of the truth, that he is for the disclosure and transparency. Because even including Harry Evans, Andrew Neil has really held the longest amount of time positions in the British media. And he has held the positions by promoting the outright right wing and racist agenda and narrative. He was given too long on the BBC to present this Andrew Neil program on television, BBC One, in which he had token participants like Diane Darty Abbott and Michael Portillo. And he had other slots where he had absolute right wingers as commentators, including the Indian descended criminal called Ganesh and the racist mole Isabella Oakeshott. So Andrew Neil is not fit to be treated as the main person who knows what actually is going on in the head of Rupert Murdoch. Andrew Neil is the one also who founded GB News, and before anyone knew, he was out. So Andrew Neil couldn't even stay in post at the helm of the, or even as part of the GB News that he so openly kind of touted. And he did that at the expense of the collective image of the BBC, which he began to condemn after he lost the platforms on the BBC. Nothing that Murdoch has done in the print media or in the television sector. Fox News is, of course, an extreme case, but in the United Kingdom, he has done the Sky News. But nothing the Sky News has done is comparable to what can be called breaking news or breaking issues. Sky News has not broken anything. Because if the Sky News did break anything, there would have been no Boris Johnson, there would have been no Liz Truss, there would have been no Conservative win, so called, at the 2010 general election in the United Kingdom. And there would be no war, there would be no collusion by Tony Blair with George W. Bush in the genocidal attacks on Afghanistan and on Iraq. And there would be no crisis whatsoever about the so called migrants of the world heading for Britain. It is a fantasy created by the liars at Sky News, and Sky News is a product of Rupert Dirty Digger Murdoch. There is no slot, there is no correspondent, there is no forum, there is no platform, there is no nothing. Nothing in the format of Sky News that actually is capable of correcting the lies that are daily perpetrated by the overall operations, either of the Sky News or of all the broadcasting mainstream outlets, the BBC, ITB, Channel 4, Channel 5, etc., etc. So, none of the questions that actually arise from the report that Murdoch has moved and has given his son Lachlan the position, none of these items actually answer the question. And as I said before, if it is true that he has moved himself from actual executive control of running Fox News and the newspaper outlets, then it must have been against his will. But it is unlikely that it has been against his will. It is likely that the word transition is true and he is not giving up. Like he has done in the United Kingdom with the Sun newspaper and the news of this cruise, in the USA he has got equivalents. And those print outlets in the USA are telling lies, and they are the ones who blindly supported the rise of the political, the electoral kind of rise of Donald Trump. Trump would have been completely out of the question if the truth were being told by Fox News and others. In fact, Fox News became the satanic broadcasting equivalent of taking over the USA by the right, which is what has happened. Even after the payment of the nearly $1 billion that Murdoch has had to pay to the first lot of litigants that sued Fox News for lying about that particular operation, lying about the election results. Even after that, even after the payment of that sum of money, Fox News remains financially absolutely robust, and political agenda of Fox News remains unchanged. The narrative remains unchanged. Okay, so let's check what the pretend newspapers, which pretends to be independent, which is the I newspaper, is saying about this. They're putting it under succession. Let's see on page 4 what they're saying. All right, so they have got 2 pages, which the, the 2 pages coverage is led by this criminal liar called Kahal Milmo. The shitbag Kahal Milmo is a complete liar. He is supposedly the media editor of the I paper. So Milmo is saying media colossus will not fade from the headlines. Murdoch used business brilliance to gain huge powers. Now, business brilliance to gain huge powers is not the truth because it's not about the business. It is about the political agenda of sabotaging democracy, sabotaging freedom, and sabotaging the opposition to colonialism and racism. And Kahal Milmo cannot be expected to tell any of those truths. The other piece on the same 2 page spread says Rupert Murdoch has announced that he is stepping down from his role as chairman of the boards. And they're saying that he gets a mixed reviews to the announcement. And they're talking about how Lachlan won the battle for succession. But there is nothing in that piece or in those pieces that say anything about the actual role Murdoch has played in destroying democracy right across the world. So, what is the Times itself saying, which is a Murdoch newspaper? And we shall then go to the Scum, which is the other one of the dailies. And they've got 2 pages of frothing at the mouth, oozing praise for the dirty digger on the Times. And the first one says, the top of the 2 page spread, formidable operator who made news right around the world, empire of the sun, Lachlan steps up with soul control. And the third one is, there will never be another Rupert, tributes from politics and media. It's all pack of lies. And there is this piece in the comment. The heading on the Times says, Lib Dems are looking like kingmakers again. Bad news, that one. And there is another piece against Biden in the Times which says that he's a liability. There is no editorial about Murdoch, of course. So, what is Caitlin Moran having to say if she has got a column today? She has got a column usually in the Times section 2 called Arts on Fridays. So there is a picture of the evilness called Russell Brand. Let's see what Caitlin Moran has to say about Russell Brand. This would be interesting. Well, here it is, the biggest celebrity story of the week, the month, and maybe the year. So let's check what she has to say, and we shall be reading, if we can, almost all of it. Hugh Edwards' moment of scrutiny consisted of a few frankly bland texts and resulted in no criminal charge. And there is a new word here. Is Caitlin trying to be crafty? She's saying Shopper Calypse was admittedly shades darker, but also resulted in no criminal charges. However, at the time of writing, 4 women have made allegations of sexual assault. 2 reporters and 1 other woman has reported her claims of assault to the Metropolitan Police. And the joint investigation by Channel 4, the Times and the Sunday Times, a solid 3-year effort that will have been, to use the technical term, lawyered up to the wazoo, seems to be prompting even more women to come forward with their stories. The allegations against Brown, which he vehemently denies, are countless degrees more serious than those against either Edwards or Scofield, involving allegations of a 16-year-old girl being picked up from school in a BBC car and sexually choked, rape, legal threats, and multiple employers turning a blind eye. Brand has said that the allegations pertain to a time when he was very, very promiscuous, but that his relationships were absolutely always consensual. He has said that he does not mind his promiscuity being discussed, but seriously refutes what he describes as very, very serious criminal allegations. If even one of the stories is true, Brand, the man who in his first memoir describes losing his virginity at the age of 17 to a sex worker hired by his father while his father had sex with two other sex workers in the same room. Well, it's not in the same room. The other description is that in the next room. And surmised that my sexuality had morphed forever from bewildered innocence into something more complex and rapacious. Is a sexually damaged man who has combined a career of cheerfully consensual shagging allegedly with a sideline in something much darker. The screen grab Brand's text to one of his alleged victims, where he says, I'm sorry, obviously, this was a bad decision. I'm embarrassed by my behavior after allegedly raping a woman without a condom. Now, what is the connection between having a condom or not? Before reassuring her she won't need testing at an SDT's clinic and that he will make it up to her. Seem pertinent, as is the fact his alleged victim is documented as having attended a rape clinic later that day. This was all back in 2012, and there appears to be an electronic and paper trail, a cold and uncomfortable fact for those defenders of Brand who claim these allegations are all a plot to bring him down for telling the truth about, for example, COVID vaccines and aliens on his YouTube channel. In 2012, Brand was still the darling of the left. He had been a columnist on The Guardian and assiduously quoted by Labour Party. Well, I'll read that again because I've read an extra word in there. In 2012, Brand was still the darling of the left. He had been a columnist on The Guardian and assiduously quoted by Labour. Indeed, as all the claims made so far predate Brand's pivot to right wing conspiracy theories, there are no allegations of coercive or illegal behavior after 2013. This rather blows a hole in his fans' logic. On paper, it seems that the more left wing, liberal, and mainstream Brand was a regular on the BBC and Channel 4, interviewed on Newsnight, guest editing the New Statesman, starring in big Hollywood movies, the greater the frequency of the allegations. If you really want to die on the hill of suggesting Brand is the victim of the mainstream media, your best and most logical through line would be suggesting it was the mainstream media that appeared to enable, blind eye, and in many cases encourage his behavior towards women. Since he has been on YouTube in a beanie hat spouting pro Putin propaganda about Ukraine, we have heard no more about Mr. Winky, as he used to refer to his penis. Perhaps conspiracy theories have replaced sex addiction. In the end, both are a cheap, manipulative way of feeling both power and validation. But now that the police are looking into claims about Brand's treatment of women, and with YouTube suspending the monetization from his lucrative channel, it looks like he will have to find a new way to feel these things. I know this idea seems impossible to a certain kind of man, but maybe ultimately true human contentment won't involve getting thousands of women into bed, whatever the means, or earning millions of pounds. It's about being silent and alone and comfortable with your emotions. Well, there is an opportunistic, complicit, and collaborative piece by Kathleen Moran. She's not calling him a rapist, and she's not including most of the allegations and accounts that have been published in the last, let's say, 10 days. So we're just noting that. Now, going back to the issues of the role played by Rupert Murdoch in three continents: Australia, the United Kingdom, and the USA. Of course, the USA contains the satellite operations that are run in Canada as well. And in the case of UK, he has got other satellites operating in the peripheries of the particular main headquarters of the UK operations. The agenda politically that Rupert Murdoch has actually pursued and is pursuing is the agenda of anti democratic, pro fascistic kind of status quo. Now, there is nothing against these tendencies and these narratives, either in the Labour Party in the United Kingdom or in the equivalent parties in the USA, the Democratic Party in the USA, or the equivalent in Australia. What Turnbull has said reportedly must be treated as a minority view. So, what will happen as a result of the Murdoch kind of reorganization is that nothing will change really in terms of political coverage, in terms of the contents of any of the outlets. And despite the fact that Michael Wolff, who is a self serving career biographer, who says that Murdoch's main anguish, within quotation marks, I'm putting it within quotation marks, about the fact that Donald Trump is not retiring. No, he says that Donald Trump should die. Why does he not die? He says. I mean, that is not a really serious, original, investigative report, is it? Because Murdoch is age 92 and Donald Trump is only 77. So if age has anything to do with it should be Murdoch who should be dead by now, not Trump. And to say that kind of thing is absolutely infantile. It doesn't say anything about what damage Trump was allowed to do to democracy in the USA, to democracy in the world, to the cause of peace in the world. Murdoch has actually led the way and been the principal propagandist, warrior against the Muslims. All his platforms are dedicated against Muslims. And by definition, all his platforms are dedicated against the victims of racism, victims of slavery, colonialism, imperialism, as these are perpetrated now. I was looking during the previous edition to find the name of the Canadian supporter of Satan Rushdie. I am still looking for that name, and I'll hope to find that name before ending this particular edition. Why is this fucking cunt's name not appearing. Why is the criminal, convicted fucking criminal Conrad Black, not the other one, looking for well, that criminal's name I have just remembered. It is not there, but the fucking cunt's name is Ignatieff. Michael Ignatieff. This fucking cunt's name is so uncommon. Let's get a view of the cunt's current position. It is shit, racist shit. He was born in 1947. Michael Grant Ignatieff. What a fucking complicated, uncommon name in the context of the English kind of nomenclature. Michael Grant Ignatieff is a Canadian author, academic, and former politician who served as the leader of the Liberal Party of Canada and leader of the official opposition from 2008 until 2011. Known for his work as a historian, Ignatieff has held senior academic posts at the universities of Cambridge, Oxford, Harvard, and Toronto. Most recently, he was rector and president of Central European University. He held this post. He held this position from 2016 until July 2021. While living in the United Kingdom from 1978 to 2000, Ignatieff became well known as a television and radio broadcaster. So, why is the fucking cunt's name not appearing in all the searches that I have done so far? I just remembered from my memory this cunt's name, but not found it in the news searches. I'm looking for the cunt's role in promoting the crusade and the cause of Satan Rushdie, because the cunt was very active in the 1980s and 90s in Britain through the BBC in promoting Satan Rushdie and attacking Muslims. But there is no heading in the list of items into which his entry is divided. There is no entry about Satan Rushdie. It's not a surprise because the anti Muslim Wikipedia is understandably complicit in suppressing the truth. So Ignatia was the criminal, the Canadian criminal that was very prominent in supporting Satan Rushdie. And it now appears that the evilness called Emily Mate Lies is also Canadian born. Let's check on this cunt. The racist cunt. Hello. Hold on.
Hello there. Come to do your fire blanket.
Sorry, what is that?
Your fire blanket for the landlord.
Okay. So you have to come back later, a bit later.
Well, no, I need to do it now.
I'm in the middle of something, that's all I'm saying.
All right. Have you got one of these?
I haven't, but I'm just saying that I'll be available if you come 20 minutes.
Okay, yeah, no worries.
That's
All right.
all.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
So this item has to be ended because the individual wants to come in to deal with some kind of installation. So we shall be continuing this edition or these topics in the later editions. This is coming to an end at 58 minutes.